Hello. Things.
Okay.
I'm
I think we're good. I think people can hear us.
Terrorist is a convicted felon in 2 states.
Wait, is there really Chip Chap in the chat just went, are there gonna be spoilers? Yes.
Guys,
they're
read
joking.
the...
I'm sure they're memeing it.
No, like read the thing you're clicking on. Obviously, they're going to be spoilers.
They gotta be memeing. No one is that stupid.
What's wrong with the stream? I don't know. I think the stream's okay now, right?
Nick's dead is wrong with the stream.
It's the latency. They're probably getting it slightly later.
Yeah, they're getting it. They're getting it a lot later.
Yeah,
it's the audio. I can hear the audio.
That's fair. My character still has not shown up.
What a great start!
Well,
what a brilliant start!
Oh my god!
Into our festive variety hour.
This tells us at least one thing. We do need to get Nick's streaming stuff set up to where it has much lower latency, but that's a later problem.
That is.
You just click low latency.
That's a different plate of cookies for a different glass of milk.
Well, it's not just. Thank you, Wayne. Santa Wayne.
Oh my!
I love that.
But no, there's also just, it's not just the low latency mode. You also can go into OBS and get your bitrate down, right? But
I really like Spider-Man.
I do too.
I also enjoy Spider-Man.
I'm pretty happy with Spooder Duder. Yes.
Spooder Duder's never gonna catch on, Wayne. Stop trying.
I like it when Spooder Duder shot web.
Okay, cool. Oh, never mind. I stand corrected.
They still say no audio, though.
I like the part.
I mean, can they hear us on stream?
Well, if they can't hear us, they can't hear me say...
I can hear us on the stream.
Oh.
If they can't hear us, they can't hear me say, I hate you guys. I hate all of you. I hate you so much.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
Jesus, Wayne.
That's a Cyanide and Happiness bit, isn't it?
No, that's Monsters, Inc.
Okay.
All right.
That was that's like what started the trope for me when I first started noticing, the whole record the villain saying an incriminating thing.
That's how you became a groomer.
Yeah, so...
Oh my god.
Okay, so you guys can hear us. Chip Chap, sort your life out.
Chip Chap, you see that thing that says volume? Try turning that up.
Oh god, we are horrible. Thank you guys for being with us. We're doing a quick, short spoiler cast today because, well, we really wanted to talk about Spider-Man, and we all have very weird circumstances called life that we have to get back to. So
you guys wouldn't know that because you're Sonic fans.
Oh my god. Oh my god. But thank you for hanging out with us. It's really early for me, but yeah, I guess I missed a whole lot of stuff while I was passed out an hour before, like when we were supposed to start.
We had the whole podcast without Nick, and now we have to do it again,
basically. From what I'm hearing. Guys, what were your general thoughts, real quick? Around, like, yes or no? Did you like the movie? What's going on?
Oh, I loved it.
This is top 3.
Yes, top 3 for me.
Is the happiest a film has made me in a theater setting, in years.
100% agree. I love the part particularly where like they're escaping Al's toy barn and there's a different Buzz Lightyears all along the wall, and it's like I love that movie so much, man.
Yeah, I've been giving this a lot of thought. Like I'm just like, and I think it's just because like we have to be critics with a lot of stuff. But I was sitting there in the movie theater like, is this going to die down? Like, is this euphoria? Is all of this going to calm down? And I'll be like, this isn't that good of a movie altogether.
And it just didn't happen.
But I was sat there and I was like, you know what? Regardless of anything else, I wanted these calmer moments where all these characters are talking with each other. I know like this fan fiction-y script kind of brings things to a screeching halt every now and then, and I was fucking here for it. I love that.
Oh yeah. Every single when they spent a shit ton of time with the characters just talking sometimes for like 10-minute stretches in the movie. I was just like, no, keep going.
Yeah.
I'm currently taking the position of it's a lot of fun. It's a fun event, and it's a very unique sort of cinematic experience that you're getting out of it, and entirely worth the price of a movie ticket. But like, I think the story, in many ways, falls apart once you start trying to apply logic or scrutiny to it.
Okay, well, context.
Okay, so well, again, so guys, there's a spoiler warning for this spoiler cast. You know, just might spoil a few things. Basically, I think there's a few instances of character flanderization, particularly with Peter being a bit of an idiot when he's like nagging Doctor Strange mid-spell, not speaking to MIT first. I'm of the opinion that the film could have been a 3-hour one. I feel like they have the justification there because it's very fast-paced, and it would have been quite fun to have a scene where Peter's trying to call up MIT before going to Doctor Strange, but they hang up on him as soon as he says his name is Peter Parker. That would be like a little piece of MCU humor. That way he's not so stupid to the point of being like, wow, dude, you're really, really stupid.
It's not stupidity.
In his defense, I was sitting there in the theater thinking, oh, you can just call them?
Yeah, so was I.
That's a thing that I didn't even know you could do.
I did not know. I thought the rejection letter was just that was it. That was done.
Yeah, man.
I feel like you would try that before.
Maybe you would. Apparently, most of the people in this room wouldn't.
Yeah, like so like here's the thing. This is a thing every single time I've had people who are like freshly 18 in my live chat on stream. They're talking about getting their first job or anything like that. Usually they say, hey, I didn't hear back from the job. I didn't get it.
No, I get that. Like, in any normal scenario, I get that. But in, like, a situation where it's kind of desperate, you feel responsible for your friends not getting in, I do feel like before you would go to Space Wizard, you would call MIT. But okay, like, that's just one thing. That's just one aside. My other thing, and this is a bit more of a game breaker for me, is basically Spider-Man's plan. He doesn't want to send these enemies home because they'll die. But so he's like, okay, we'll redeem them. Even if that creates a divergent timeline, how does that change the fact that the second Doc Ock goes home, he still has to drown himself with his giant machine? Because you could say, oh, he was plucked from a time before that or before it destabilized. But by the time Doc Ock found out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker, the machine had already destabilized.
But
right.
How does Spider-Man know that? How does Doc Ock know he is going to die in that moment?
I mean, they don't know that, but ultimately it's like, yes, there is logic to be applied to it, but does it ultimately make a good movie if nothing has changed?
So there is a thing you have to consider, though, and that is that we do get told in no vague terms the exact moment that he was plucked from his timeline. And in Spider-Man 2, the moment that he's there is right before his moment of clarity, because what happens in that scene is he grabs Peter by the throat, he's holding him there, and then he has an argument with his tentacles, says that no, he'll be the one in charge, and then he goes to take on his machine and bring it into the ocean. But here's the important thing here. It's not just that there's ample time for him to do X, Y, or Z. It's the words he says right before he dies. In Spider-Man 2, his last words are, "I will not die a monster." This reads to me that version of Doc Ock chose to die during a moment of lucidity and control, something that he did not have for a good portion of that movie, and something that we can see in No Way Home he desperately wanted to keep as soon as he had it. When he had that little bit of control, that's when he was comfy, because he knew he was going to lose it again. It's a lot like somebody who has lost control over their mental faculties, and they decide when their mind is right for a brief period of time, that's the time they want to go. That's the time they want to be euthanized. That's the time they want that to happen, because they go, no, I want to be me when I go. That's the decision he makes in Spider-Man 2. If we take this version of Doc Ock and send him back into that scene, he no longer has to think that, oh, I want to die in a moment of lucidity. He is now lucid. He can choose to topple that machine into the ocean and save himself because there's no more reason for him to die anymore. He doesn't have to die in a moment of clarity. He's just lucid now.
Damn, okay. That's the first time that anyone has brought up that point. That really is the first time. I've never heard that before from you or anyone. This definitely isn't something that we've rehearsed at all. But this definitely isn't a position that I'm only assuming now for entertainment purposes. But
this isn't a conversation we had while Nick was asleep, literally an hour ago.
So it's funny how, like, I've seen Spider-Man 2 a million billion times, and I've been of kind of the assumption that Doc Ock's death, his sacrifice, if you will, was tied to him pulling down the machine, that it was a byproduct of destroying that. But at the same time, you do see in Spider-Man 2, he's floating above the machine. He could swim up if he wanted to. Like,
yeah, he chose to die.
Yeah, so okay, he's chosen death because he doesn't want to die a monster. He wants to die while he's got a moment of clarity and to have his last moments be as Otto Octavius rather than Doc Ock. Spider-Man 2, it just gets better the more you think about it. But also, because Spider-Man No Way Home is a film that gets better the more you think about Spider-Man 2. But in another instance of a kind of a lack of attention to detail, and this is like the Doc Ock
hold on,
one
Nick wanted to say something just a second
Sorry,
ago.
yeah, go on, yeah.
It's just like a lot of the problems I had with like potentially them going back to their timelines. Like my buddy Jacob and I were on the phone about this movie for about an hour after I got done watching it, and he said, "Dude, you got to remember, like they blatantly said there's infinite timelines that everybody knows Peter Parker, whether or not that makes a divergent timeline or not. Like that's basically what's going to happen for some of these characters is they are the same character, but now they're just like one step removed from the one you saw in the movie. You know, like." It's not exactly the exact same Green Goblin, or at least it's not anymore, because you have the Raimi-verse and how that played out, and now you're going to have two separate timelines where Norman survived and Ock survived. If Ock even survives at all. I wasn't as concerned either way. Doc could still go back there and die, and it's not going to change what the characters know about the situation, so I don't think that's a problem.
I mean,
either
that's
way.
true. But I think just because a logic can be applied to it, that doesn't necessarily make it a satisfying story. However, with what Surus said applied, I think it works now. Like, that's the thing, is like a story can make logical sense, but if it doesn't act within a certain sense of payoff, or basically something negates something that happens there. Like, say you had a film where it's like a character's trying to achieve a certain specific goal, and they have no real way of knowing, you know, that that's not going to go right, or that things are supposed to go another way. And then it just ends with, oh yeah, character didn't achieve goal, but thinks they did.
But even if that's the case, like we had a lot more time with Ock back as a normal man and had these reconnections with him and his Peter. Like we still had some satisfying wrap up for that character. You know?
Oh, because in this timeline, that Peter witnessed his Doc Ock die.
Yes.
Right. And another thing worth noting is that this was about more than just whether or not they succeeded. It was about these or at least especially this version of Peter Parker being so hell-bent on at least giving them a fairer chance than they had in their own universe. It wasn't about whether or not it would for sure save them, but he couldn't live with the idea of sending them off to knowing they would die. Yeah. He wanted to at least give them the possibility that or at least give them a chance of being somebody better again. I love that with like Electro. I love that with Sandman. Although Sandman and Lizard really were just kind of there.
Realistically, Electro is the one who has the highest chance of survival going back to his timeline.
Actually, that brings me to another point. Electro is another thing where there's kind of a little lack of attention to detail in the writing in places. It's in no way as egregious as my Doc Ock problem, what I had, which has now been resolved. That was my biggest criticism, which has now been dissolved, and I'm thrilled about that, and I just dropped my sound card through the bottom of the sofa. I'm not happy. I need to get that, but
I can't imagine what this computer looks like where you drop your sound card.
Well, I had a sound card, which I didn't need to bring, and this is futile because I'm using my laptop right now, not my computer. Damn it, I will sort that later. But my other problem is the dimensional shifting. It brings in everyone that knows Peter Parker Spider-Man, right?
Eventually.
Electro does not know
I
that
was
Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
I was wondering about that.
Now, a thing I kind of thought of was, oh, maybe he found out later down the line. Maybe. But then during the final fight, he literally says to Spider-Man, I thought you'd be black. I hoped you'd be black.
Yeah. I thought about that too.
Does not even make sense in the context of its own story. Like,
no.
So
there's one.
I actually hadn't
issue.
considered that one.
Yeah, there's one more.
Oh, okay. I have. This is a stretch. I may have an explanation.
All right, right for the writers, Wayne.
Okay,
Wayne, do the writer's job. Come on.
Sorry. Okay, so so Electro exists as energy, right?
Yeah.
I think that what we're supposed to take from that little computer chip or that little like energy meter that was like counting down and completely depleted in at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 before Green Goblin showed up. Is that was supposed to be the moment that he died, although I'm not entirely convinced. I think he was just so unstable that he couldn't reform himself. I think it is a possibility. And that maybe he was in the process of dying because there was not enough power in that location for him to reform, and he did end up dying. But he may have been able to linger on just long enough to hear Harry Osborn in the ethers saying, "Spider-Man is Peter Parker," as he himself made that revelation. He said it audibly, and then Electro may have latched onto that as his final moments before he dissipated into nothingness. Again, fucking stretch, but if you wanted to reach, there is an explanation.
I'm gonna say it. What you talk about, Wallace?
It's like a stretch, but you know, your reasoning, you grabbed a hold of it, but still smacked his head against the ground. You know.
I always kind of say like, if it's not in the movie, it doesn't count. But like,
and that's the thing, because like there is the argument that he didn't technically die, he just couldn't reform his body in the original film, and that at a later date, that's when he learns of his identity, and that's the version of him that we get in this film. But like,
I mean, we didn't see him at all until he just started forming himself out of those electrical transformers.
Well,
and
hang
then
on. Mao's got a really good point. Eddie had no idea who Spider-Man even was.
Yeah, but Venom did.
Venom did, and Venom communicated that information to him at the end of the Venom movie.
That's a good point. There you go.
He says the symbiotes have like a hive mind thing
that wins.
Yeah,
that wins.
And my thing is that like that little chip that we saw metering down in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is obviously not necessary for his survival because that did not exist in No Way Home at all.
Yeah, like Venom's got multiversal hive mind, and he has all that knowledge, but does not communicate that with all of it with Eddie because he wouldn't be able to handle it. Gives a little bit of it to him at the end of the movie, and then of course that makes him a candidate for being yeeted over. Like that,
so
it's fine.
While we're on that subject, Venom should have been a bigger part of this film.
No, I agree.
Absolutely not. They did it perfectly.
No, hear me out before you say no. You're like an obnoxious asshole. Okay, hear me out.
Jesus.
Hello, yes.
When it comes to the Venom twist in the mid-credits, I understand it makes sense that he gets pulled back. I understand he's not necessarily going to go immediately to Peter Parker. But, writers, you guys understand this, right? Setup. Payoff. You understand what I'm saying, right?
I honestly still think this was the best case scenario because, like, honestly, the Venom that we have in those Venom movies would not have worked for a Venom versus Spider-Man like setup. It just would not. And
what about the instances I've kind of mentioned? Okay, like Spider-Man getting his name cleared, I get that, but like Venom as a symbiote shares the hive mind with other Venoms in the other universes and such. Like, so he could still have that grudge and then pass that on to Eddie. The fact is, he's even like, I guess we'll have to go pay the Spider-Man a visit. That kind of set up a Venom v Spider-Man kind of thing.
Like, it would have made sense for them to have a conflict while Peter Parker was public enemy number 1, because that's
I'm
when
saying that Venom should have been in this movie properly.
I still think because they handled a lot of things in this film a lot better than I was expecting. I think we at least we can give them a little bit of credit here to say that they have a plan with this, and I think like the last thing Eddie thinking was, hey, maybe we should go pay this Spider-Man a visit, and then his little symbiote fragment gets left behind is going to be the setup as to why that symbiote goes over to track down Spider-Man. And I still think just do Eddie Brock as Tom Hardy in this universe.
For fuck's sake, all of you. How the fuck does anybody watching that movie think that Eddie Brock is not going to come back to that universe after a couple of films, if not the next film? He's going to be back to that movie's universe.
Oh, wait a minute. The next canonical thing we have that happens is Multiverse of Madness. We literally have an in-universe way.
It doesn't look like
there's a little... It's an ongoing multiverse saga they're doing right now anyway.
There's a little part of the thing. So what is so brilliant about this for me? The problem everybody has with it is like everybody treats this like it's this permanent thing. Like they're not going to write their way around this. That Venom is going to come back. What they just did there was two things. First off, troll the shit out of people, which I thought was hilarious. But secondly, and like, oh, okay, actually, and this is what I've noticed about the MCU, like it's Occam's razor a lot of the time with some of this reasoning, right? Like we're going to have a little drop. It's compelled to go over to Peter. We're going to have Peter now in this very dark place in his life with nobody dealing with the symbiote. Like you're going to see an angrier, darker Peter because this version of the symbiote doesn't actually bring that out of you, but I think it's going to actually like, do what it's supposed to do. Like, bring more out of him.
Giving him that power without him having the check and balance of two better older Peters.
And now, I think you, sorry.
And now this Venom, when he does come back, however it does, because Zendaya will get her memory back at some point, and maybe that causes a splinter, or like that bit of the symbiote acts as a homing beacon for Eddie and Venom. But when they come back, you're going to have symbiote Spider-Man versus Venom, and then when that symbiote bit goes back to Venom, then he will have the White Spider.
Yeah. And that's like I think that there's definitely a possibility for that, especially since this movie is just like, hey, we're taking everything that we
let's go.
Sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
This movie was just like, it took everything that they had established about this version of Peter Parker, and I'm glad that they made it all still matter. But they got to the point where, and I was saying this earlier before, I was really enjoying this movie. It made it into my top 3 because of the final scenes, where it's
the Cure fight is so good.
Jesus.
Oh well, and no,
I wanted to mention that, but sorry, go on, Wayne, you first.
Well, I mean, I really fucking enjoy that too, especially for a lot of reasons. That it's more than just, oh, we gotta punch the bad guys and stop them from doing a thing. It was about more than that, because they had a magic button they could press to just send them all back whenever. But no, it was everything after that. It was that fucking coffee shop scene. It was him moving into his new apartment. It was him with the fucking Spider-Man costume that isn't fucked with in any way. It's just the suit. And I love it. And
does look like the Universal Studios version of the costume.
Those
kind of Web of Shadows, actually.
Yeah.
Those scenes for me were just the Amazing Spider-Man from the comics. And they took everything from that series. It seems like they're trying to establish this Peter Parker to a much closer version to that version of Peter and Spider-Man. And it did so in a way that took a tremendous amount of sacrifice on his part that really hits at this emotional core of who this character is. And it established that this whole trilogy, and they really pinned this down for me in the one scene with Aunt May, was this whole trilogy was his origin story to get him there. Long ass time to get there, but I loved it.
What I feel they've done here is kind of like the Man of Steel thing, where you've got these movies that pull aspects of the Spider-Man character, And it's enough for you to say, yeah, it's a complete Spider-Man film. It doesn't necessarily do the entire extent of who Spider-Man is, but it does enough for you to say, yeah, that's Spider. It does enough for you to look at like Homecoming and Far From Home and say, yeah, that's a satisfying Spider-Man movie. There's Spider-Man. That, you know, that's him. But then No Way Home folds in all those different aspects that they didn't touch on in those ones and brings us like a Spider-Man that is fully like, I guess, definitive. But one thing I was going to say that doesn't quite sit right with me, and I know this sounds kind of hypocritical because I don't mind like the Ben Affleck Batman, for example, but like,
yeah,
Spider-Man in the final fight of No Way Home would have killed the Green Goblin in cold blood if he wasn't stopped physically by Toby Maguire. I think a better way of doing that would have been if Toby Maguire didn't have to physically stop him, but instead was in the distance and said, "Hey, don't do it," and then he just like looks back, and then Tom decides for himself.
So
I would agree with that if not for one thing.
Let me just a couple things here because I've been quiet for a little bit. So for that scene, there's a couple things. I like seeing the flaw of Peter Parker in there because his mom just died, and this piece of shit did it. And I think that's okay because he's younger, he's hurt, he's angry, and just having two versions of Spider-Man show up wasn't immediately going to solve all that pain. But
he hasn't had his Uncle Ben moment.
No, and I love that Toby Maguire, who talks about regret. He talks about it all over the place, and it is like this literal representation of older Spider-Man stopping that from happening. And then when Toby gets stabbed, Peter once again has or Tom's Peter 1 has the potential to do it again and doesn't do it. Which
actually Toby was Peter 1, Tom was Peter 2. Double checked.
Fair enough. But he then doesn't do it. My problem with that scene is none of that, because I don't mind having heroes that are going to falter every now and then. And Peter Parker is supposed to be the one that falters and learn from it. And the only problem I actually had is the tingle. Where the fuck was the tingle?
Oh, I thought that the whole like Toby getting stabbed was I loved the joke that they had about it. I think they had two little jokes about that I thought were funny.
Yeah,
but it was like it was still meaningless because it was just like, okay, so you had me for a second.
It's not. It's like not though, because it is like people are gonna have a problem with Tom Holland's character trying to kill him out of cold blood, and that was the second chance. Like, oh, you took May away from me, and now you're taking away another Spider-Man. I have more reason to hate you even more. I'm going to make the right choice now. That was his second redemption.
I did want to mention that one reason, Pup, that didn't bother me of Toby having to stop him from doing it. I would have had an issue if Toby had to say anything. He didn't. It was all just them being there in that moment. It was, you just looked at Toby Maguire's face. There was this calmness in his eyes, but also like a pity where he was just telling Tom, I get it. I've been there. I found out
what you're going through.
I found out
specifically.
I've killed both of the men that I thought were responsible for Uncle Ben's death. I mean, let's not forget, when he went after Flint Marko, before the symbiote even attached to him, he was on a manhunt. He was ready to go out there and murder him. The symbiote just helped him along the way. And for all intents and purposes, he thought he was successful, and he was fucking happy about it.
Yeah, he was just fine with the idea that Sandman was dead. I really liked this. This has a lot of plates spinning at one time. And having Toby Maguire Spider-Man play like the calmer, older, wiser Spider-Man, it really felt like they are different people. We understand that they're different people, and I loved Garfield's take on it. Like I've always wanted brothers. Just melted my heart.
Oh.
But
when he's like, I love you guys. I loved that.
So Spider-Man 3.
I don't know if any of you have gotten to your point in life where you sometimes just daydream like, what if I could go back in time and do some things a little bit different?
Oh, all the fucking time.
I've done that before. Honestly, the most recent time I did that, I decided I never wanted to do that because I wouldn't get to meet you guys probably.
Yeah, we had this touching
had
little
this-
chat
yeah.
between Wayne and I remember this.
I remember reading that, but like that's literally what Toby Maguire's Spider-Man has in there. What I thought was going to happen, and I was going to roll my eyes for this when Andrew and Toby showed up on that scene there. I thought Toby was going to hold Andrew back, like that fucking trope, and it didn't happen, and I was so happy for it. I was like, they're really not going to do, because 2 tropes are going to happen here. That's what I was expecting. One guy's going to hold the other guy back, and then Peter's going to scream and throw the Goblin glider to the side, right? Like, oh, it's going to cut away. Oh, but he didn't actually hit Norman's face. I was like, no, like he was ready to murder this man for killing his mother, who just died like earlier that day, you know? And like,
it felt so real.
It felt raw as shit, dude. It did not feel out of place. This was a Peter to me that did not have the Uncle Ben moment. Like, they don't mention it.
Yeah.
Maybe he still did, but I don't know, man. Like, I know it was a drawn out origin story, but it really worked instead of being this tired story we've done before. It was just raw and painful.
Yeah.
I think he definitely had like an Uncle Ben moment like earlier, but I think it plays out more the way it did in the Ditko comics, maybe, where Uncle Ben is more like a kindly, sagely old man and such. And he doesn't do the imparting of like, with great power comes great responsibility and such. That's more Aunt May's place. He's had more time to kind of like, he values Aunt May much more after the death of
we
Uncle
as an audience also care about May more.
I think
due to our time with them.
I think we're going to see this play out a bit in freshman year, but I will say this. I think the idea that they're doing Uncle Ben as the Ditko version, where he's just a nice guy that died because of Spider-Man and not this sagely guy, and that Aunt May takes the more sagely role, is a genius move.
I think so too.
I was so happy when she was having her last little speech with him, and I'm just sitting there in my seat, like basically silently begging at the screen, say it verbatim this time, you cowards.
The thing that makes it for me as well is Peter's response of "I know."
Yeah.
If he hadn't said that, I do think it would have changed things a little bit.
That does throw a little bit into the window. Like, instead of like confirming if Uncle Ben exists in this world or not, they instead throw in a little more like, okay, we don't know for sure because we don't see any of the graves next to hers. But that's
Also,
a good
like,
point, because that sounds like something that he's heard from Ben before, right?
Toby literally mentions Uncle Ben to Tom Holland, and Tom Holland has no reaction to it.
Yeah.
Now, we know he had one because we've got the Benjamin Feet Parker suitcase from from Far From Home. And we've got the brief sort of hints at Uncle Ben in Homecoming and Civil War. But, like, yeah, I think he's going to play a much smaller role in this origin story. He's still going to be that catalyst. But as I say, we'll see in freshman year. Maybe freshman year is going to be something brand new. And I think, like, the fact they've done this now is at least okay. But I will say this. There's been a lot of MCU Spider-Man skeptics that have said, like, when Far From Home and Homecoming were out, I wish they'd just mention him by name. It's weird that they haven't mentioned him. And I always thought, it's okay, they're pretty self-contained, they don't need to do that. This, in No Way Home, was the one film where I thought, okay, it's a little weird that Tom isn't mentioning him.
Because the other Spider-Men are talking about it.
And I did not interpret that as Tom Holland not having a reaction, because when when Toby finishes the, must also come great responsibility, Tom's like, how do you know that? And Toby and Andrew both echo, they say that, that was what Uncle Ben said the day that he died. And then the music swells up, and there's something that just brightens the fuck up on Tom's face. Like, he doesn't not have a reaction to it. He has every little reaction to it. The music starts swelling, and then that's when they say maybe she didn't die for a reason. But Uncle Ben is still important to him, and it's still part of the reason why he's Spider-Man. I just don't think it's in the same way as it was in the other movies.
I think that maybe the reason why his reaction is also, I guess, a little different to what you'd expect is because he's kind of familiarized with the death of Uncle Ben.
It's also not so, like, he's this Spider-Man probably has a lot of distance between that moment and now, We don't know when it happened. It could have easily happened when he was a lot younger, so it doesn't affect him. It's kind of like how it works with me and my grandpa.
We know it happened 6 months before Civil War.
Yeah, because he's only Spider-Man for 6 months. But I mean, yeah, like if you notice how those three talk to each other when they first show up, there's just some stuff that doesn't really need to be explained thoroughly. Like Toby just says, "I'm sorry for May." Like everybody knows who May is. Like all three of them know who Aunt May is. I'd assume all three of them know who Uncle Ben is. Andrew Garfield doesn't mention his Uncle Ben dying the same way.
He does mention though that Uncle Ben said great power with great
which he didn't.
Well, I mean, he said
should
something very
have.
similar. He said something. I thought it was actually quite tasteful that they didn't say it.
I
fully.
thought so too.
I think
I agree. That wasn't.
I thought it would have been. I thought it was fine, but they should have capped it with by saying, "With great power comes great responsibility." It was a great lead-in, but you're taking.
Because I feel like by the time he said that afterwards, he might as well just wink at the camera at that point.
I disagree. Honestly, it's one of the most eloquently put, like, just greatest mantras for a comic book hero, and then everyone was just so freaking scared of it for the longest time.
Oh,
everyone's talking about
actual Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I guess. So, can anyone confirm if this is addressed in the film? Because this is another thing that I think is a bit of a lingering thread. So, Spider-Man has made everyone forget that he's Spider-Man. But that doesn't necessarily change the fact that there's still metaphysical material out there that could tell people. Like, surely Jameson could just go through his old video files and find, oh, Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Why did I forget that?
I would assume fucking magic accounts for that.
I think so, too.
I feel like it would have been handy, though, if they just had, like, Spider-Man be like, can you erase all matter relating to it as well? Like, I feel... I'm not one of those people that's a stickler for plot holes, but I feel like there are slight tweaks
I think you
that
are,
could be
though.
done just to tighten things. I'm not.
I think this is something they can easily address in the next movie, and I think that they will. I just think it would have been wasted time at the end of this film when the emotional resonance needed to be in that moment.
It's as easy as Tom Holland saying, "Can you make everyone forget that I'm Spider-Man?" and erase any material relating to it.
That's just unnecessary because I think that that literally goes without saying.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, that was a very impactful emotional moment, and like it's the same with like the stab and everything. Like there's like some things like maybe you got to pick apart as fans, but like I think a lot of the stuff in this movie shows us like they understand that some plot holes are going to happen. Like we're doing a lot at once, and some of them we're going to just try and vaguely slide by, and we can potentially explain off screen. We don't need that. We don't need this big dramatic, like, okay, make them all forget. Also, delete all tweets about it. Can you erase my Snapchats?
It would be the same as like handing somebody your keys and saying, hey, can you fill my car? Oh, also, can you screw on the gas cap when you're done?
It's kind of accounted for in the idea. Like you can, if the spell's going to make everybody forget who you are, then like if it can erase a brain, it can erase a camera roll.
That literally goes without saying. And again, I think that's something that will come up in the next movie because he'll probably address that, but I think it would have been wasted time here.
I think they subtly addressed it though, because we have J. Jonah Jameson on camera talking about it afterwards, and I think that is supposed to represent like through media as well, because
I just think
you mean Alex Jones?
Yeah, he represents the media arm of things.
Where there's a question, I think it's good for the writers to account for that. I think it amounts to it ultimately being a better written thing.
I think that honestly, I think that would have made it. I think that would have made it muddy pop. Honestly, I got to be honest. I think that would have been
just had one shot of like Jameson looking through old files or whatever or something.
I think that would have been too much.
I think him being on camera is like supposed to represent like this arm of the of entertainment and media does not know that it's Spider-Man as well. That's what Jameson
mantle again, and they made that not an issue.
Green Master and Antonio Soto have given me something that I think is a bit more compelling. Is that Peter actually lost his high school diploma and had to get a GED?
Oh shit, you're right.
I feel like that is much more compelling evidence than it wouldn't make sense.
I think
films don't make sense, guys.
Well, I was also going to bring on other points, such as the fact that there you go again, Pub. Thank you.
Apologies.
I was going to bring in the point that we're also meeting Ned and MJ again as they're talking about the fact that they've already been accepted to MIT, despite the fact that the only material evidence we've seen about their status as being enrolled to MIT was rejection letters. So we know that even the media or the physical evidence have changed.
Kiss each other now.
Kiss each other now.
Thank you.
Is that compelling, Pup?
This is a ridiculous thing to get heated about, and a ridiculous thing to continue to talk about. If it's a problem for Pup, it's a problem for Pup. It's not for the rest of us, clearly. Can we talk about Andrew Garfield, for fuck's sake?
Okay, so after this film, I would like more so than anything else. And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the next Tom Holland movie, absolutely. But after this film, more so than anything else, I would like a new Spider-Man film with Andrew Garfield featuring that same costume.
Dude,
I would not have agreed with you before this movie. I would agree with you now.
Everything about Amazing Spider-Man let down Andrew Garfield as far as I'm concerned. What an amazing Spider-Man. Oh my god, dude.
Also, I think it's helped by the fact they're not trying to do the whole he's a kid thing. I think like
he's Spider-Man. He's just Spider-Man.
One is so much better. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Dude, anyone else like as soon as like he leaped out towards Lizard and started talking shit, I was like, oh, that's Spidey. That is Spidey, dude. It was so good.
It was so cool that like we got three different versions of the same character, and they all felt distinct.
Yeah, they all did, and I think part of it, and I know Toby's gonna be getting shit for it, where it's like he's not in the suit a whole lot, he doesn't do a lot of quipping.
Dude, I fucking love when he revealed his suit under the shirt.
That was so subtle. It's like that is an older dude who's just not hanging out. Yeah.
I will say that I think it was cool seeing that like each of these versions of Spider-Man represented that character at a different stage in their life. Toby is obvious. Toby is obviously this is the older, wiser Spider-Man. He's made his mistakes. He's got his lessons. He's come to terms with the things he's done. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, however, has not yet come to terms with the things he's done because we get to see him do it in the movie. And it's amazing.
Because I think, Pup, you were the first person that I heard predict that.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
Also, the ending I predicted with him in like the coffee shop and everything. Like, also the scene with Toby and Doc Ock getting to speak to each other again. I loved that. That made my heart
full. That was so good.
I didn't expect this movie to do any of this stuff. I expected something a little bit closer to Sonic Generations. You know, a lot of these crossover things where it's like, oh, we're here, we're fighting. It's about the spectacle of it. But this movie didn't forget about the characters. Like, this is why we love these characters. And yes, sometimes we have to stop everything just to have these, like, kind of fan fiction-y, you know, just little conversations. And I loved it. I loved that. Those are my favorite parts of the movie.
It felt like it managed to offer some closure to those versions of the characters. I liked hearing Toby talking about how him and MJ have managed to work things out, and you know, they're making it work. And I was just really happy to hear that because like they leave that question up in the air at the end of Spider-Man 3.
I loved that we started off with these Spider-Men in somebody's living room. And we get to see them be scientists before we get to see them be superheroes. I love that this is all about Peter Parker not picking the easy way out. It is all about that responsibility over the power. That is the whole theme of the movie. I loved it, man.
It just reminds me of like there's my favorite time this has happened for me in Spider-Man media is in Marvel Zombies, but I mean it happens other times too. But it just reminds me of that moment where like Peter is lucid as a zombie, sitting there in a lab, trying to cure everybody still, despite the fact that we are far past that point in that story. Just like because that is one of my favorite things in that story, seeing that shit here, it just warms my heart.
Yeah. And it really I also like just stuff like I think Cirrus, you and I were talking about this where I was saying like there was one little joke that started to kind of rub me the wrong way, but then like the further it kept going, somehow it ended up working.
Oh, the Amazing Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, I thought that was I was starting to get kind of annoyed by that at first. Where I was just like, all right, this is just kind of like stupid MCU humor.
Yeah, I will say some of the humor felt a little bit SNL. Like,
but then it kept going, and it fixed itself.
So here's the thing about MCU quipping I actually wanted to bring up here, because I thought that was a very, very good comparison, Pup. The way you described it. My only pushback on, and it's not for every single scene, because again, they stop everything in the middle of like a final fight to do this, but like, if anybody's gonna be quipping, it should be Spider-Man, because I'm comparing this to also like the latest episode of Hawkeye, where we have blonde Black Widow, I forget her fucking name, and they spend like 3 minutes talking about fucking mac and cheese, and like, just get to the scene, just get to the rest of the scene, for fuck's sake. But like,
everybody wants to be Tarantino.
Yeah, but like God damn it. But like one of my favorite moments is just like, and they're still kind of panicky, but like all three Spider-Man are there, and it is Peter talking to Peter, and I just love like, well, we got to figure this out. Like we got to coordinate. I've been part of the Avengers. The Avengers? That's great. What is that?
Who are they?
Yeah,
like, are you part of a band? Like, they're still excited to hear about like the other versions of themselves and their lives they lead. Like,
I just love
it's a fine line between sarcastic but also genuinely excited. Are you in a band?
And I just love like Tom trying to explain what the Avengers are, and then Toby just yells at him. He's like, "How is this helping?"
Yeah. I
really love that.
It was fucking wonderful.
Oh, but yeah,
I wanted more quips out of. I wanted more quips out of Toby's Spider-Man. That was my biggest problem with his version of the character. He just sounded so weird. I'm going to talk about it in the video games. I like his dry, just like I hate everything, Toby. That's barely
I think
acting.
I had a bowl of Mysterios for breakfast.
But
I'm late for Dr. Connor's class.
I really loved God damn it. I love that they managed to balance all this shit. We have the meta narrative of like how the wider audience has reacted to these different versions of Spider-Man and their movies, and we're doing jokes about it, but we're also still taking these enemies not always seriously, but we are taking the threat of them seriously, I think, by certain levels. I mean, Goblin, I'm glad Goblin was like the big bad out of all of them.
He makes the most sense in terms of like, this is one of the most problematic villains.
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, they cured multiple personality disorder with the stab in the neck.
Well, I didn't mean it that way, but also, but I mean, well, actually, that would make it makes sense though, considering that it was a serum that split him, so a serum putting him back together.
That's fair.
It's fine.
That's fair.
Fine.
I guess that's how they did it in the comics, more or less, anyway. Or was it just blunt trauma to the head?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just felt like each one of them had their own kind of sense of humor to it. And M has a great point here. Toby was so unassumingly charismatic in this movie. I agree. He really felt like an older brother that like had to remind him, like, hey,
or a cool youth pastor.
He's like,
he's a cool youth pastor.
No, just that subtle little, gotta save them all, right? Yeah,
that's what we do.
That's what we do.
Which is way better than Sonic Generations. Freaking, it's like it's our job or something.
I loved the because I was gonna mention about that one line where he's like talking to Andrew and be like, you gotta call yourself the Amazing Spider-Man, or something like
you're
that.
You're amazing. Can I hear you say you're amazing? Just say it.
And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking in my head at first, I was just like, oh, it's the MCU banter, and then I was just like, wait, no, it's actually not. This is the Raimi banter. Toby Maguire's Spider-Man did this all the time in those movies. Like at the beginning of Spider-Man 3, he's just going on about the freaking acoustics in the theater, and then like Mary Jane has to just cut him off and call him a nerd, like cutely. And I was just like, oh no, wait, that's entirely in character for him.
How great was all the
to
nerd
go on
stuff?
like this?
How great was all the nerd stuff? Like when Garfield shows up and he starts like string theory, multi-dimension. Everyone's like magic string. Like all the scientists react to that the same way.
How amazing was that? How amazing was that though? That like Andrew didn't immediately discount magic. He was just like, magic's real here too. Like he was just fascinated by it.
Yeah. Don't appreciate the spoiler talk? Then why the fuck did you click a video that says Spider-Man spoiler cast?
It's literally like we are spoiling. It's in the title.
You created this situation for yourself. I'm sorry.
Like,
honestly, it's better that you said it than me.
It's like going to the beach and complaining there's water.
7.8 out of 10. Too much water.
God.
Also, I did want to say if I'm gonna get heated with you publicly, I'm gonna apologize and eat my shit publicly. I am sorry I got heated with you. That was silly for me to get.
You both give a fuck about this movie. Everyone gives a fuck about this movie. No one likes being talked down to.
No, I'm thoroughly embarrassed by how that whole thing went down. Not because of you, but because of myself. And I do accept. Like, I get what you were saying, that it can kind of come across as like detail, whereas not necessary. I guess I'm quite passionate about like I feel I don't want to end up accidentally shilling, like
no, I feel it.
I do want to look at this with a critical eye and try to put my fanboy aside that gets caught up in all the spectacle and look at it as a piece of media. And I guess there are some things that maybe I feel could be a little better clarified, but I think, like, as the guys in the chat said, the GED is certainly enough. I will say this, though, there's no way this podcast is staying up unedited.
You think?
I don't know. I think it's fine.
Because here's the thing.
Definitely editing out a few parts of this, if that's okay with you guys.
Okay.
You do what you want, man.
I mean, y'all do you.
I want to say this, though, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot, Pup, and this is kind of what my film apologist video was going to be about. I don't know if I really want to do it. I just wanted to gush about this movie. I think it's just sometimes okay, like, just embrace the fanboyism and just enjoy the moment. I think I'm worried too much about like a lot of the bigger, more eloquent people that pick this apart just be like, this is actually stupid, because they do a really good job of making you feel dumb for liking a thing on occasion,
Oh yeah, no, like my intention has never ever been to say that it's a bad movie. I myself have never said it's a bad movie, even when I've held the position of things could have been written better. And I think like a lot of really good clarifications have come from you guys and from the chat. I've never ever tried to make the point that it's a bad movie or that anyone should feel bad for liking it. But I've tried to hold the position of, as much as I enjoyed it, I was cheering and stuff in the theater, I still think it's important for me to hold it to a certain degree of scrutiny that I would other films.
Nobody cheers in the theater at all. It's never been a thing. Nobody's ever done that before, and now that they are, it's just ruining cinema.
What was the first listed like famous standing ovation for a film? Because I'm sure it goes back to like Black and White.
There are occasions.
It's not a common.
I mean, it wasn't always common here either, Pup. Yeah, I know, like, a lot of the independent and everyone was saying, like, it's not common over there. And you've told us that before.
Yeah.
But
I enjoyed it. Like, as long as it's not over any particularly dialogue-sensitive scenes, I think it's fine. Like
they baked it in, and, like, it never felt forced. I think it was obvious when they wanted it to happen, because you go back and listen to people react to it, like their reviews or their first impressions. Everybody has the exact same spots where that happened,
where the theater just erupted.
Yeah, and it is sometimes, if you had to come back, if you wanted to really bring people back into theaters, you had to do it like this. You had to make it an event, and just hearing people genuinely excited to celebrate 20 years of this franchise that they love, and every aspect of it, like all of, like the strongest points of all these movies gets represented in some way or another, be it compelling villains or a super charismatic Spider-Man that had like a really just overly produced movie let him down. Everyone got a chance to shine. We all had a chance to celebrate, and we had all the representations of the fandoms like come together, like, bro, we're here because we like Spider-Man, and that's what this movie is. And I'm gonna celebrate, and if they do this again, then we're gonna be in a Sonic Forces situation. But at the same time, I still have Sonic Generations,
We're getting another film that does this. If it does it poorly, is not going to suddenly make this film not worth the watch.
I honestly, like, I've seen a couple of people kind of compare this as the as Spider-Man Endgame. I gotta be honest, like, as much as I think that is a great event, I still enjoy this as a movie more than I did Endgame, because I think it just, like, I think I just get more out of the meat that's on this thing's bones, I
care
guess.
more about the things, every single part of this movie than I did for Endgame. I don't give a fuck about Captain Marvel. You know? I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite. He's everybody's favorite, and it's for a reason. Well, and what's the worst thing this movie's doing? It's making you happy. I'm fine with that, you know?
I will never... Sorry.
There's just going to be times for me, and it's not always going to be the case, where I can't be completely critical. Like, I think it is fun to, like, pick it apart and look at it, but, like, even, like, the GED book, that tells me, like, we're doing a lot, guys, like, on a lot of levels here, and we're doing our best. Some things are going to slip through, but we're going to, like, just, even subtly, when we can't dedicate every single portion of the script to this, most filmmakers, competent filmmakers, especially for blockbusters, understand that plot holes happened, and they're going to do their best to keep your attention away from that, just through solid writing or some little hints on the screen or things like that. And obviously, as we've been talking, not everything made it through. I mean, we still don't know for sure what happened with Electro. Pup does have a compelling point about, like, because everybody asked about it, regardless of what we want to admit it or not. Everyone asked, like, well, is it still on phones? Like, everything. I've heard people ask that before Pup. He's not the first. He will not be the last. And the stab at the end there. But, like, I still think they understood, like, all right, we talked about the tingle throughout this entire movie. Maybe fans will say it's more important for Peter to be like, this is a more important thing. Like, I can't let him go down this path. And I wish I had somebody there, or an older version of me, to stop me from doing something I'm going to regret for the rest of my life. So instead, I'll take the hit, because it's more important that his future is intact, and his sanity and whatever's left of this shredded heart stays pumping, you know? I don't know. Like, that's an eloquent way of saying we just really wanted a dramatic scene.
We just liked it.
Or you could say it's dramatic for a reason, though, isn't it? Like, as you say, like, that is what it is. Like,
and it's there to give, it is, like, you can tell that it's there to give the stakes, that it's like, okay, now that Tom Holland is having his guts ripped out just emotionally, now we're gonna make him do the right thing. Like, you know, it's written for that. I just don't care. I loved it.
Yeah, and my thing is, like, it's so much about this movie. Again, like, Aunt May being the one to say, with great power comes great responsibility. That scene at the end, him sewing his own little suit together, it looking exactly like the classic comic book outfit. So much of this felt like it was just... Because, like, as much as I've loved, or I've enjoyed the last two movies, I've had my own reservations about them. I feel like they've all been addressed. And it's like, this is just leading in. I felt like that scene at the coffee shop was like a preview of what the tone is going to be like going forward. There were moments of this that didn't feel quite like any other movie in the MCU up to this point, and it felt so much like its own thing. And that ending just tells me, it's like, man, Spider-Man's in good hands here, and I'm really excited to see where they continue to take this character. I love this version of Peter Parker so much, and I'm glad that we got to see him go through this journey and to come through this this struggle into becoming the version of Spider-Man that we have now. And that's the thing, is, like, anybody who was complaining about him being Iron Boy before, no, if that had any weight to it before, that is all out the window now. This is Spider-Man.
I loved it. I just, you know what I love? I just realized this. Don't you love that they show off the classic suit only to tease a different suit at the end of the movie?
Wait, did they?
Yeah, the black suit.
Yeah, they tease the black suit, but he's in the...
So maybe we'll get classic black suit.
They fucking better. They had fucking better. I swear to shit.
I will say this. I am so happy that the way that they made him go into the classic blue suit was a handful of things. One, we got a proper send off to all the MCU suits. He had the Iron Spider suit. He had his nanotech. He literally was sitting there laundry washing his other suits, trying desperately to have them work because he couldn't afford to leave the nanobots off of Doc Ock. Like, I liked getting the send off for all the suits, and at the end, after he's learned all of those lessons from Andrew Garfield and Toby Maguire's Spider-Man, after he's learned all those lessons, the first suit he makes for himself is one that looks closer to their suits than the suits he's had previously.
Yes.
It reads to me like he is internalizing those lessons and going, no, these are the Spider-Men I want to be like.
Yeah. I agree completely. I took notice of that too. It was like suddenly there's a big striking amount of blue that wasn't there before, you know? It was
it was shiny.
It's beautiful. It was beautiful.
It's lovely.
So when can we get the proper toys now? I want the proper toys.
I agree with that. I'll say like from like a thematic standpoint, yeah, I think like the new suit is beautiful, and I think it's really, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I prefer the red and black one, even down to the
It
fingerless
looks good.
gloves.
I
Like
it's-
that's just from appearance. Like,
I do like the design of the advanced suit. I just or is it the upgraded suit? Upgraded suit. It's the Spider-Man suit is perfect. And
I agree.
I'm like I know it sounds silly, but I get really annoyed with little things like even the way like Homecoming did it or Civil War or what have you, where they're just like, okay, we're going to do this suit, but we're gonna have to adapt it a little bit to make it look a little more modern. We're gonna add some black accents here and there. We're gonna add some lines on this and everything. I know this is gonna sound super hypocritical coming from somebody who's one of my favorite suits is the advanced suit from the PS4 game, but the original costume is just so perfect, and it's all I've ever wanted to see on screen, and I got it. I wanted more of it, but we got it.
also, I will say this: I've always wanted to see Spider-Man web swinging around in the snow, and we got it.
Yes!
And you got it. Oh my god,
Yes!
he did.
Because
This was a Christmas movie.
I was begging for that up until we got it like in Miles Morales. But yeah.
Pub, do you remember that tweet a while ago where somebody was just saying like I'm kind of sick of the trope that of superheroes having to earn their costumes?
Yeah, I think it's completely valid, but like
I do
it's a
too.
case by case basis.
And I was also gonna say that too, because I think we got some really cool suits, and they all felt distinctly this is obviously Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
I think just the emotional themes that we went through, especially in this movie, I really do feel like, yeah, we have earned this version of the suit.
I feel like what they were saying was in reference to how stupid they were being about the CW Flash. Like, how he's got to earn the gold boots, and it's like, what thematic relevance does gold boots even hold?
Exactly, yeah, and I agree completely. Yeah. It's just some shit we've seen, you know, for a while. Everyone's been trying to be Batman Begins, but I think tonally, I hope people can retrospectively, like who've had issues with Iron Man Jr., can appreciate the MCU version of the character for what they were trying to do. When
it's
they were
nice
more...
to see that they have kind of unified the fan base a little bit more now.
I hope so, because they really played up the excitement, because we've had plenty of Spider-Mans before. This is why we were avoiding Uncle Ben. The excitement was seeing him with other superheroes, finally, and how he, you know, plays into that world. And it makes sense in the comics, it makes sense here for him and Iron Man to, you know, to click, because they're scientists. But finally getting, I don't think that classic suit would have worked quite as well if he was with Iron Man this whole time, or had access to his shit like he did. So, like, getting to this point after everything he's lost and everything he's willingly given up, you know, he has nobody else in his life, and like we go forward as like, okay, this is truly bona fide Spider-Man, I really feel like it was a powerful moment when he changed his costume there. So I loved it.
Yeah. I feel irrational about the way I feel about that final scene. There's something about the loneliness of it, but also that sort of Peter Parker hopefulness of being in like the worst scenario, but still making the most of it. Because that's just what he has to do.
Yeah, because he is in an unfathomable situation by the end of this film.
Yeah,
It's
heartbreaking. And he's still carrying on. Like,
and
he's lost everything that he worked for over the course of these 2 films, but he's still carrying on.
I do like that they kind of addressed, like him going to talk to MJ again, because I was wondering about this back when they were first casting the spell. I was just like, why is he not worried about it? Can't he just tell people again that he's Spider-Man? And
but then no, because obviously it's just because he's got to go.
They don't even know they don't even know who Peter is anymore.
It's just not that easy, and it's like,
that was a thing I thought of, like when he was like, "I'll come back and tell you" and stuff, and then watching that actually play out, you see it's actually really difficult to do. Like,
yeah. Which is funny because I think one of the best case scenarios I've seen of that go wrong came from an episode of Rick and Morty. But there was this scenario where Morty gets Rick to make him this little reset button where he can just like he can make a like a little save point in time and then go back to it whenever. And he ends up meeting this one girl. It's all told silently as he just goes on this like 10 to 15 minute adventure with this girl, and they have like their own small like life basically, and their relationship gets so deep. And the last time he ever like saved was right before they met. And he never had to like reset anything after that. And so like something goes wrong, and I think Jerry like just thinks it's a TV remote and hits the button, and he just goes back there after they've gone through all this shit, and he's like trying to talk to her and everything. She starts pepper spraying him, freaking out, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it wouldn't be that simple, huh?
Because the person that you are when you meet that person could be really endearing, but the person you are after several years of being with that person, once you know all of their once you know the little bits of minutia about how they operate, you having that knowledge when you come to them for the first time for them, that just makes you look like a stalker now.
Yeah. And it's because you were so emotionally invested in this person, and obviously if they don't know you, then they're not going to respond to that well. So I thought it was like intelligent for him to just kind of like put the note in his pocket and just decide like, now's not the time. But I loved it because it felt like it sowed the seeds of like there might be something here. And they might be able to make this. Maybe they'll be able to make this work again. Maybe they'll be able to rekindle that relationship. Maybe they won't. But we need to go on that journey with him, just not now.
You can't just repair it immediately. We can't just have a freaking. Everybody here, I hope, has seen Legend of Korra, right?
No.
I've seen parts of Legend of Korra. I haven't taken the time to sit down with the whole thing.
God damn it!
Legend of Aang yet.
There's
Antonio Soto for the $5 saying Spider-Man is pain.
I won't try to spoil then, but there's a moment in Legend of Korra in the first season where something drastic happens to her, like damaging forever type of thing.
I think I might know what you're talking about.
And literally in the next episode, it gets fixed by Deus Ex Machina. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
All over the place in that fucking show, man.
I think that show found. I don't want to talk about the whole show, but I think it found its footing by the time it got to its third season. I think by that point that show like knew what it wanted to be. But I'm glad that we didn't have that scenario happen here, where it's like, yes, here's all of this weight, and we're just gonna strip it away at the end because he's gonna fix everything by talking about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that it like they just established it's not that easy. That there's a weight here and there are consequences.
It's not a fairy tale, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was important for this too is because of this kind of unique way they had to get us this version of Spider-Man. It's just good that like it means something the way they got there, and that can't just be unwritten.
I just love this movie.
Hey guys, check the chat by the way on
Yeah.
Yeah, so
See.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I need to give it a rewatch as well. Like,
I'm definitely. I kind of want to marathon the original Spider-Man movies, and then rewatch.
oh, I did
this.
that before going to see this.
I tried to.
Yeah.
I never found the time. So, sir, if you wanna meet up sometime, maybe that'd be fun for some of our patrons to do something like that. I'll just.
It might be, but I think my plan is that I have a friend who's coming over later today. He's going to be staying for a few days. I'm going to try to rope him into watching all of them.
Good
so I don't know if it'll be.
I do have a big ass screen. I should try and enjoy some of those on there.
Yeah, I don't. So I don't know if that's a thing that I'd be able to do with patrons the same way, because it's going to be in a room with a TV, not connected to a computer.
Yeah, I just. Yeah, we really do have to wrap this up. I do think it does say something that like the third act was just as exciting as it was, that we barely really touched on everything leading up to that point. But I mean, we are running a little bit longer than I think any of us really anticipated, so we are gonna have to wrap this up. And this is more about spoilers than anything else. So I don't know, man. Like, I've always felt like I've kind of felt dead inside with a lot of movies, and like I just like, well, it happened, I experienced it. It's been a very long time since I've wanted to go, but be like, man, I want to go back to the theater and watch that again. You know, it's been a very long time since I've experienced that, and this movie gave me that.
And now now I can't wait to experience the exact opposite of that when I watch Resident Evil today.
Oh
God,
yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we should wrap this up here. We all have lives to get to. Does anyone have any final thoughts they want to pass along before we get going?
I fucking love Spider-Man.
I love you guys.
I really wish I could say the same. I'm kidding.
Oh.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just happy that not only do I have a group of people that I can just nerd out with, but that I can do that as part of my job.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
it's good stuff. All right. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for spending whatever time of the day it is here with me to talk about some spooder dooter, as Wayne so lovingly puts it. I'm Nick at channel Pup. If you want to watch me talk about Spider-Man some more, Cyrus is over at Game Apologist. If you want to see him, he talked about Cucky of all things, like a fucking weirdo. Wayne, his boss, is at Cyrus the Skeptic. If you want to, if you want to just feel, if you're not a leftist, then you'll hate him. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something good. And Channel Pup is at. Is Wayne his boss? Is that the last one I was missing there?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
He really loves Metroid. Can't get enough of it. Just talks Metroid all the time.
Go over there to watch him talk about Zelda.
All day, every day. Metroid with this guy. Can't stop. And Klonoa.
When's that guy finally gonna make a Sonic video?
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. But we are going to wrap it up for the day. Enjoy your holidays. We might just do some more live streaming before the end of the year. We'll see. But otherwise, stick around for January, where